some stories and experiences from our own personal quantum healing hypnosis sessions. So it's sort of giving anybody an idea that hasn't received a session, giving people an idea of the different ways that you can get healings, the things that you can heal, the different experiences that you can have within past lives and parallel lives, future lives, all sorts of things. So hi Sarah, thanks for joining.
Hi, you're welcome.
So I received my session while I was doing my level 2 training in Egypt, and I was so curious to what I would experience, because for me, I've been able to do my own past life regressions through meditation. So I actually had a lot of information already about a lot of my past lives. So I was really curious to see what I would go into using the hypnosis. And I was really surprised experiencing that theta state of trance. So that's not something that I was able to get to in my own meditations. So going into that deeper state of trance was just really amazing. So I felt really heavy in my body. It felt like I couldn't move. And yeah, it was definitely very, very different to what I'd experienced in just meditation. But also, I felt like I was able to get more information and a lot quicker, but visually, it wasn't as clear as what I'd get in meditation. It was sort of like a fuzzy sort of visual. So I remember talking to Michelle before we started the session, and I was like, oh, I want to go into this particular past life. I think I was really curious, you know, like a fairy lifetime or one in Lemuria or something really cool. And I was like, I don't want to go to this medieval lifetime. Like, I'm really scared that that's going to happen. And it's like you sort of go into the life, like you, like oh, sorry, I'm getting mixed up. It's like where you don't want to go is where you need to go. So that's what I experienced. So I went to my medieval past life. And so this was a life that and like I said, I did know a little bit about this life before I experienced the hypnosis. But in this lifetime, I actually studied, so I was a boy and I studied under Merlin, and he taught me magic and that sort of thing. And in that time, magic was like, it was a really dangerous time for magical people in that lifetime. And more or less I was actually tortured to death, and I knew about how I died in that lifetime, which is why I did not want to go to it, because I guess I was still carrying the trauma from it. But it was really interesting because reliving it like really lifted that trauma, and now I don't have any fear around that era and those experiences, I guess. So what I saw was when we got off the cloud and I landed in the place that I needed to be in, I pretty much just saw black, and then it slowly changed to like a dark grey. And then after a little while, the visual sort of cleared up. So we were sort of trained in level 2 about, you know, when you first see black, there's nothing wrong with that. So that was actually my experience, like being a really visual person, the first thing that I see is black. So I was like, okay. And when the visual cleared up, what I saw was basically sort of going into that, like where I died in that lifetime. So it was really interesting because it's like my current consciousness knew where I was, but also like my past life consciousness knew where I was, if that makes sense. Like it's like I had multiple like consciousness, like thoughts going on, like recognizing where I was and what was going to happen. And also because in that lifetime I had visions, so I had the gift of premonition, I also knew what was about to happen to me. So I just start crying just by like, so straight away I'm in my past life, I'm just bawling my eyes out and I'm like really hysterical, and nothing was happening to me. It was just simply knowing what was going to happen. So then after we sort of settled down you know, I went through the past life, and as I mentioned, just got a lot of healing just from reliving all of that. I also found it really interesting. So even though the visual wasn't as clear, the sensations were really intense for me. So I felt like I could feel things. Like, yeah, it was really crazy. So one of the healing that I received within my subconscious section of the healing was my like skin and my muscles and my body has always been really like painful to touch. So even when my kids are sort of jumping on me and that sort of thing, it's been really painful. Like I've never enjoyed getting massages or anything like that. So I had that down as a question, and my subconscious healed that. So the subconscious mind, my subconscious said that I was confused between pain and pleasure, and there was nothing wrong within my physical body. It was more about rewiring my mind to sort of, and I think like I got like a clean slate, if that makes sense. And then the next day in class, we were getting massages, and I was like, oh, that feels good. Like it's not painful. And also another thing that I found really interesting with my session was that I had particular questions for my subconscious that I was curious about. And I had speculated what the answer would be. And what the answer that I got was completely different to what I was, you know, like I was like, maybe it's because of this, and maybe because the answer that I got from my subconscious was completely different. So I just found that amazing. So there's a little bit about mine. So next, maybe if I can have Michelle, you can tell yours.
Yeah, sure. So I've actually had a few different QHHT sessions done now, and each one has been amazing and different layers as I've kind of went along. Um, so I'm a QHHT practitioner as well. I did my level 2 with Pixie in Egypt, but I hadn't had a session until like I had first taken it, in person in Atlanta, Georgia, when I did my level 1. So my experience when I went under, so normally there's like a whole process before you get somebody to their past life, but but I jumped in so early, and it was funny because we were learning. So the person doing my session, it was his first time doing one too. So it was kind of funny. I think I really caught him off guard because I landed right away on the day that I died. And I was a little boy in the Middle East, and I had like a chain around my ankle, and it was stuck under a rock, and I was dying alone in the hot sun. And I just started bawling. I felt so sad for that boy that was in that situation. But you know, it was emotional, but it was a good thing to experience that. Like there was definitely a huge sense of release, and I have carried a lot of fear about stepping out and being who I'm supposed to be in this life, because I was shamed for who I was trying to be in that life. But it is interesting the things that you can see, because one thing that even stands out in my mind is had this pair of scissors in my hand, and it confused me because I'm looking at them, and like Pixie's right, like I felt like my consciousness as well was split in between the two, and I'm like, I know these are scissors, but then my conscious mind is like, I have never seen scissors like that. There's no way that's what they are. Because like the handles were like one on top of each other instead of side by side. But afterwards, when I did research, and I actually found like that in some parts of the world, that's what they used to look like. It's amazing the stuff that can come up. But anyway, in this life, I was. I suppose I had like ET friends even in the Middle East, and I was like writing light language and doing things like this. But I mean, that I suppose that place was even more closed off than what parts of the world are today, especially at the time that it was. So that led to my dad kind of being very cross with me for some things, which is kind of how I ended up getting in the predicament that I was in. But the healing really blew me away. And even though I had read stories about what QHHT can do, I didn't know if I really believed it myself, you know, until I had been there and experienced it. And like I had a problem with my back. Like it was physically impossible for me to lie flat on my back. Like there's been like one of my lower vertebrae had been broken, and the muscles were always super sore. And in my QHHT session, my subconscious comes in and explains that the reason that had happened was because I was scared to stand in my creative power. And because I was scared of that, it caused a fracture in my spine. And my subconscious, had no problem just being like, you know what, we're just going to regrow that. That doesn't need to be like that anymore. And I could feel this intense heat in my lower back. Something else that had been healed during that session is I suppose a lot of, there's been a lot of mental health challenges in some of my family, and I had always had lots of anxiety and depression over things that I really didn't need to keep thinking about. And my subconscious came in and was able to, give me a really great perspective on some things, but then my subconscious did kind of laugh at me a little bit and about the mess that I made in my own brain. It was kind of funny, but they were just like, oh, not a problem. We're just going to rewire some of this. So they said they were changing some of the neural pathways which existed in my mind so that I wouldn't be as drawn to some of those, like negative and anxiety thoughts that I had always been drawn to, and that it was going to be easier for me to shift my focus in another direction. And that is exactly what happened. It totally blew me away. Like the next day when I went to go lie down and it didn't hurt. I'm like, I didn't need a pillow underneath my legs. I was so excited. But I stopped biting my nails. I have bit my nails as long as I can remember since I was a kid. And I didn't even try. It just disappeared because that intense anxiety that I had carried with me was gone. So there has been so many ripples of healing that I didn't even intend to heal that just have corrected because of some of these other core issues being addressed. And I found after being able to clear some of those base core issues, when I had another session with Pixie actually in Egypt, we got to experience a whole other level. So my subconscious, because I had already gone through some things that had been troubling me, was able to, I suppose, expand more into like my life purpose, life direction, path, things that I need to develop and are going to experience, and was able to give us like details about the fairy realm and how that realm works with our world and all of this amazing stuff that I've always liked the Fae and I've always felt drawn to them, but I've like never read a single book or there's no way that I would even be creating any of this information that came through. So it was really quite astounding the depth of information that was able to be accessed just from being in that theta state. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Courtney, if you're ready to share next.
I'll unmute myself. Yeah, I think so. It's a big one for me, and I guess where I'll start. I don't even know where to begin. Just so much came up for me that I'm still. It's going to be a little bit noisy, I think, for me. That I'm still like unpacking. But yeah, the biggest one that I sort of realised in my life was where I'd come to Pixie and I just wasn't sure, of life direction. I felt like I was being called to do more, just on a higher level, but I didn't know like what on earth that, meant. And, like as a child, I felt like I was quite drawn to spirituality and, creativity and all of that. But then I sort of shut that down I might just grab my son actually, because he might prefer it. That was sort of where I was at when I came to the session, and just having that. And then when I landed, straight away into the past lives, where I went initially was, I was seeing like this, building, this white temple. And I think it's funny because in my mind, I sort of like reflecting back as I listened to it, I realized where I actually was. I'd landed straight in India in a past life, like right at the Taj Mahal where nobody was there. So it was, I haven't really looked like how long ago that was, but I sort of, then that sort of turned into my childhood home. But yeah, so then anyway, I ended up back in India and realised, this is almost, it's actually too funny, really. Can I share my story? I know, and this is what I've realised through all of the past sessions, because then there was past lives. So going back to, there was, you know, a life in India, which is why I've been drawn to yoga, and I saw through the session that my calling is to teach yoga. But there was also the past life where I was a witch, and I had, in the session I actually went up to the sun and was getting the energy from the sun, bringing it back down to heal. Anywho, but I was actually killed for doing that. So that, and in the session, just the anxiety that was rising, which is what it is right now, just sharing the truth. I'm realising that in this lifetime, that's why I find that really, and the children feed off the energy too, so it's really,
So good.
Whether this is helpful at all, but it just had profound one of the questions that I asked in the session, can I share, guys, something? Can I share something? What is my purpose in this lifetime? And the biggest thing that was coming through is to serve children and to share the message that they're pure and that they come into our lives as our biggest spiritual teachers. So I was shown through my past lives that I've actually studied. There was all these, you know, lots of Buddhism, and you know, I was a witch and I lived in India, like all of these threads of spirituality that, you know, in this lifetime, like right now, that I pushed aside and not wanted to believe for so long, thinking that I was crazy and all this stuff. But it just sort of really set that free and onto that path that it is what I need to explore in this lifetime, and to overcome that anxiety and still share those messages, because that's what I'm here in this lifetime to share. And it's that release that, you know, I'm not going to be killed for doing so, because I'm in this life now. So that's been a really big one that I'm still, you know, moving through now as I am studying yoga teacher training and realizing it's so odd, the you know, that intuition that I always thought, you know, really questioned, but through your session and all the questions that I asked, you know, after the past lives, all the stuff that came through was actually my subconscious was telling me things that I was like, oh, I've written that down in my journal. Like, I already had that answer to that question, but just wasn't believing or trusting in that I actually can connect to that higher part of myself quite, I don't like to say instantly, but, you know, like that inner light that I do have, that I can connect there and bring that energy down through my body and channel it. And it's just that now in this life is that trusting, and I know where that challenge lies, is because of that past life. But I was literally killed for doing that. So that's where I'm at now. But also in that session, I had a really beautiful like moment. I didn't necessarily feel like it was within a past life, but it was a healing that my subconscious allowed to happen with my mother. We were like in the ocean and we were both naked and we were hugging and our heart spaces met, and just in that moment everything just, you know, we had a bit of a, you know, strained relationship for a few years, and then after that, like, and now we have the most beautiful connection, and particularly like on a spiritual level, because it was also revealed that she has also been in my past lives in India as well. So it was just sort of that confirmation that allowed me, like, now in this life to release any whatever. There's no animosity or anymore, is there, Valerie? No. Oh geez, bring it down. Anyway.
You did amazing. Your session like blew me away as well. Like, it felt like, you know, such an honor to be of witness you know, in a past life, you floating up to the sun and taking energy from the sun and bringing it down to the earth and sharing it with others. Like, I was like, that's amazing.
But that's that realization that there's parts of that obviously were unfinished that I still need to do now in this lifetime. So that was just incredible to reconnect with that. So
thank you so much for sharing. Sarah, are you happy to share now?
Okay, am I muted?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm nervous too for some reason. When you asked me, it was like, oh, I hadn't really thought about it kind of since I had the healing. So I had to reflect and see what I've taken from it. But my past lives I found really traumatic. So the first one, I kind of woke up in the desert and I was a child. Like, I was very dirty. And once I realized what was happening, I started bawling my eyes out. As you probably remember, I was just, I was a mess. So I was actually being hunted and attacked. And I remember feeling the same feelings as if I was there again. So it was like the memory just coming back to me. And it was just, I struggled with it, but it wasn't like overwhelming that I couldn't deal with it. So I haven't made the connection with that past life. I'm not really sure where I can relate that into this current life, but I had another one where I was an alcoholic man. Now I have made the connection with my life now with this one. So my healing, I've actually got a lot from my healing, and it wasn't an overnight thing. Like, I was expecting to just have this, oh wow, transformation and, you know, I'd be a new person, but it hasn't been like that for me. So this has been like a 6 months journey for me. Now, my mother is an alcoholic, and I have struggled with my relationship with my mum and forgiveness with my mum. And it's weird that I had a past life where I was an alcoholic. And since then, there's less judgment towards my mother and more love. So I don't feel any anger towards my mum anymore. So that relationship has really repaired. And also, I healed a lot of things within my health. So I remember asking, I had issues with my skin and my weight, and the response from my subconscious was to eat from the land. So I've removed dairy and bread and basically all of the nasty, like, preservatives that I'm eating as natural as I can. So I've dropped 14 kilos since you've seen me last, Karen, and my skin has cleared up and I'm just feeling a lot better in myself. And also with my relationship with a person that I was with for 3 years, I asked if he was my soulmate, and the answer that I gave was no. But I was actually expecting it to be a yes. So I went against that and continued to pursue this relationship, which it has actually recently ended worse than it ever has before. So I guess trusting yourself, even though it might not be what you expected, just trust yourself, I think, because you'll end up on the right path. But yeah, for me, I got a lot of love, like healing with my family. So, you know, we're all on really good terms now, and my path in life has changed. So yeah, I feel like I had a lot of healing with relationships in my life. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Sarah. And also, I hope you don't mind me mentioning, but like, you went through like 4 past lives, didn't you? Because you were a tiger in one, weren't you?
Oh my God, I forgot. Yeah.
So like, some people, like, you know, for my session, I only went through 1 past life, and it depends on how, like, as a person, like, you know, how you're able to describe it. And I honestly, like, I took so long going through this 1 past life, but Sarah, you were just like all your descriptions were like bang, 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 and you just like rode through it, just like went through the life. So you got to go through 4 past lives, and then had all your answers, had all your questions answered in your subconscious. So your session was also like a a really amazing session in that sense.
Yeah. I actually forgot about that one. And tigers are my favorite animal in this life. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, I found yours, you know, I've done 33 sessions now, and your session was probably one of the most traumatic ones. Like, I was almost in tears.
Yeah.
Like, because I get visions as as people are in the session, I feel like I can see what they can see. And it was horrific what you went through in that past life. And that was one of the reasons why I asked you to come along today, is because, you know, like, to go through, to relive that and then to feel so much better from it. You know, there's a power in that. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so next, Daryl, if you'd like to share your experience with your quantum healing session with me.
Okay, so my session with Pixie didn't go anything as what I anticipated it to go. Not that I really had major expectations. I just sort of thought it'd be an interesting experience to learn a little bit more about past lives and where it is I'm trying to heal through different areas of my world. I remember a lot, well, I don't remember a lot actually about the session, which I'll get to later, but I remember a lot of the first half of it, I was really blank a lot. It was a beautiful meditation experience and I appreciated that a lot. It was nice to have that Pixie's lovely voice just sort of guide me through that whole journey. And then there was a lot of moments when we're trying to do past life regression that I just wasn't really going anywhere. I just felt, I don't want to say too calm or relaxed, but I just felt like I was really enjoying the meditation side of it, that I didn't really want to be anywhere else. And then when, just sort of out of the blue, I think Pixie realized that I wasn't going anywhere. And then I'm not sure what happened or where she took me after that, but I just sort of sat up out of my body. So I had a massive out of body experience. And I've had many of these before, so it was easy for me to recognize what was happening. But I was just really fascinated how I just sat up on the exact table where I am. So usually if I were to have that experience, I would recognize myself in a similar location, but different to where I physically am. So this was my first out of body experience where I've just sat up from my body and been exactly where I am in the world at that moment, which I was just really in shock, in a joyous shock. I was very happy. I remember being that and kind of sitting on the table looking around, and you know, the room was the same room I was in, but it had very different dimensions. It was very long and vast and open. And I remember being incredibly happy. And I sort of looked around at Pixie, and it was almost as if Pixie was having an out of body experience, but didn't realize it. We're kind of just acknowledging each other's presence in that realm. And just kind of saying like, oh, look at these two gooses doing their meditation healing thing. We'll have a bit of a giggle at them because we're on the outside and enjoying this world, and they're enjoying that world, and not laughing at them, but laughing at the whole situation. Just having a bit of a giggle, and yeah, it was pretty fun. But when I come back, that's when I found the most profound sort of experience from it. It wasn't just the memory of that I found joyful. It was when I come back into my body, I just felt incredibly light and happy. Like I've let go of a whole bunch of other things, and you know, that constant realization that the now is the most important time for me. So where I am and what I'm doing is what's most relevant and what's most important for me. I don't need to worry about anything that's happened in the past or what's to happen in the future. It's just enjoying where I am in each day. So I think for me, that was the most wonderful experience, is just having that reconfirmed and seeing the joy in as many different moments as I can as well. But I would love to experience it again and see if that's a repetitive style of something that comes up for me, or that just helped me with one particular part of my world. And then say the next time I go into the healing session, it opens up a different layer, and I go into a different element of my own healing or life experience journey. So maybe I can go deeper into that world, which would even be more fun. But yeah, so my memory is pretty vague with the whole experience, because I think I was really lost in that one memory from it. But it was magical, and it really helped me find the magic in the world as well. So it helped me to escape, but also be more present at the same time. That sounds very opposite, but just escaping all of the stresses of the world, but enjoying being amongst them at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Massive thanks to Pixie for sharing that with me. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And it's coming back to me now as you're talking. And I believe you did go to, like, was it 1 or 2 past memories in this lifetime? And then I tried to move you to a past life. And I don't know if you remember if you were just sort of getting black, like if there wasn't any visuals coming through. But I guess I would like to address, you know, why that might happen, is why somebody might not necessarily go to a past life in their session. And there is a few reasons for that. And as you said, like, you felt like, you know, it really did bring you into your present moment. And I think that that's very accurate. I've done quite a few sessions where people haven't been to a past life, and they have just revisited important past memories in this lifetime. And it does feel like, you know, that's what they need to work on, and that's what they need to you focus on within their healing is the experiences from this lifetime.
Yeah.
Also, there's the possibility of being a new soul. So people have had this experience where, you know, this is their first incarnation as a human experience. So whether or not you've had maybe extraterrestrial experiences or experiences on other dimensions, or like there could be a whole range of possibilities. So it would be really interesting to do another session.
Yeah, definitely. I'm up for that. Yeah.
And even how you mentioned, like you and I were both sort of like, it was like our higher selves, wasn't it?
Yeah, just hanging out, really. Yeah, say, hey, what's up? Look at these 2 other people. Yeah.
And it's interesting because I guess when I'm doing this session, I do feel like I'm not in my body and I'm more in my head. And I do feel like I receive like a lot of visuals. Often I feel like I can see what you're describing and that sort of thing in the session. So it probably is an out-of-body experience for me as a practitioner as well. But you got the full visual in the sense.
Yeah, I experienced that in every single way. That was fantastic.
So yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome, Pixie. Thank you. Looking forward to the next one.
Hayden, if you would like to share next, you received 2 quantum healing sessions. If you want to explain a bit about your experience.
Yeah, I can share my experience. So I received my first quantum healing session from you about 8 months ago now. And my first experience, I wasn't quite ready for the healing to occur. We went through everything required to get into the hypnosis state, but my mind didn't receive anything. I just went pitch black. I couldn't receive anything. However, I did receive a sensation of heat right down the right side of my body. And then I didn't really try, I guess, and I pulled myself out of the hypnosis myself, which was quite dangerous to do. But I was in the capable hands of Pixie, and she did guide me through it and help me through it.
And then what happened? So in the first session, you just saw black.
Yep.
And you felt heat in the right side of your body, and then decided it wasn't working.
Yep.
And then we tried again, maybe a month or 2 later.
Yep.
When I had received my level 2 and understood a bit more about people that just see black in the beginning.
That's correct. So yeah, so I did, before we went into the session, the reason I pulled myself out early was I thought nothing was happening. And I had heard and watched YouTube videos about people going on these wonderful adventures and diving into a past life and getting all this imagery. So the reason I pulled myself out early was I thought that I wasn't under or I wasn't experiencing anything. And I guess it would have been better in hindsight to actually sit in that feeling and to see where it took me, because I did receive the heat that went down the right side of my body, which could mean anything, you know, and the darkness, it couldn't have been a visualization to it as such, or a visual sensation in the hypnosis. It was more body sensations that I was feeling. So that I think that I could have had a really, really positive healing from that first particular session if I just allowed myself and went in without any expectations. I went in with an expectation. I didn't receive the expectation that I wanted, so I didn't think it was working. So one thing I'd really, really recommend for people is get rid of all expectations. Every session will be different, and every session you will experience something different, which is the amazing, I'd say, art of the QHHT healing. It's incredible what can happen. So my second session, I went in and I was more open-minded. I knew I had an idea of what I was getting into, more or less, with the hypnosis. I prepared myself a bit more, so I was ready for any outcome for that session. So the second session, I remember getting ready, feeling mentally prepared as well as physically prepared, and then we both got into it and dived deep into the healing. On my second session, I was definitely more visual. So one thing I did practice between the two sessions, which were probably about 2 or 3 months apart, was I did more visualization, and I was focusing on letting my imagination run a bit more wild. Same as when I did have to go into the hypnosis, I could visualize the imagery a lot better. So, you know, Pixie took me through the hypnosis, and yeah, I just felt a shift when I kind of went under, and you know, we're floating through the clouds, and it felt really good. It felt like the sensations. I felt real heavy. It felt like there was that heaviness in the weighted blanket. I felt secure. I felt so safe. And I felt so safe with no matter where I was going. I remember when I did touch down, and I found a past life, and it was quite full on. I'm not going to lie, it was a bit traumatic. I was hiding, so I went to a native Indian that went to my tribe, and my tribe was getting raided. So we were getting raided by another tribe down the road, and they were just pillaging and murdering, and it was very full on. And I was hiding, so I didn't get caught. And that went on for God knows how long, but it felt like I was right there in the experience, and it was a bit full on. I'm not going to lie. Afterwards, after the other tribe was finished, I kind of came out, and basically we were looking after our wounded. So in that past life, I was a healer. I was a shaman per se, and I went back into my tent, into my healing tent, and people were coming up and we were fixing all their wounds. So there's people with arrow wounds, there's people missing limbs. It was quite full on. But I did have a good team, and yeah.
It's all coming back to me now. I actually remember you were so deep in the hypnosis that I was trying to ask you questions around, because you would go quiet because you were hiding. And I would say, what are you seeing now? And you were like, shh, like you were shushing me in case the others could hear me talking. Like you were.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you went into another past life as well, didn't you? And then you had your questions answered in your subconscious. Do you remember any healing that you received in that?
I remember asking, I did ask, because I've got sinus problems, as you can probably hear. I did ask about my sinus problems, but my subconscious was a bit sassy at the time and said, nope, this isn't the time for that. And basically it wouldn't help me with my sinus issues. But I did ask my subconscious about a pain I received due to my stomach. And since that healing, I haven't received the pain, which is incredible, because that pain would come and it would just be unbearable. I'd be up for hours until it went away. There was nothing you could do to help it. It was very uncomfortable. But touch wood, since I've had my QHHT session, I haven't received that pain, which just feels good. It feels so nice not having to worry about that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to share about your session?
I think there was a few things that did come up in my session which were quite interesting, and I'd love to go into a past life for some of the topics that came up. So I'd love to get another session from you soon and experience the whole incredible work of QHHT.
Because you were told about other past lives. So you went through 2, I believe, and then your subconscious told you about others that you'd like to explore further.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I know Faye and Shannon and Anvita are on. Do you guys have any questions? Because you guys haven't had sessions yet, so you're just happy to listen in, or is there anything that you want to ask anybody? And I do have 2 or 3 more people that may jump in. I'm not sure. We'll see how we go.
Can I just ask, can you sort of describe what happens in a session? I maybe missed that part at the start.
No, that's okay. I didn't actually go through the process.
Yeah.
So I sort of tell people to allow up to 8 or 9 hours for the entire session. But some people, like I said, Sarah went through hers very quickly. So you start the session. So before you start the session, you need to compile a list of questions to ask your subconscious. So it's up to 25, like you want a good amount of questions to ask your subconscious. And then when you arrive at the session, what we'll do is we go through any physical issues that you may be having. So any physical things that you want to heal, and it can be anything like this. Yeah, this healing's amazing. People have healed bone cartilage and cancer and endometriosis and all sorts of things. So we go through the physical stuff, and then you get to tell your life story. So from the day that you're born, if you know any of your birth information, right up until, that day's date. And you get to tell, it as much detail as you want. So that's the part that can take up a big chunk of time, like I've had people come in their 70s for a session, like that's a long life to go through. So then the practitioner will go through your questions and make sure that they understand what your questions are, and also might add in any questions that you might not have thought of. But then going through your past life, your life story, you might think of more questions, and then we will go into the hypnosis. So the hypnosis is only supposed to go for 2 hours maximum. Generally, we allow 1 hour for the past life, and that's why Sarah got to go through 4, because she just like zipped through it, and we still had heaps of time. So I just kept going through until we sort of got to an hour, and then we allow 1 hour to talk to your subconscious and get all your questions asked. Yeah, so that's the sort of session, and then we sort of do a debrief after that, because there's a lot to go through and a lot to process. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, I'm just intrigued by the whole, whatever I heard, I'm just out of this world. I'm feeling I have goosebumps. So my question is, like, these answers which you get from your subconscious, is it like, because you are in your hypnosis state, so how do you remember everything? I mean, yeah, I don't know if it's a silly question, but that's my question.
That's a great question. So I record it. So I generally voice record it, because often what you'll find, and I don't know if Courtney and Sarah, you felt like that from your session, but often you kind of get out of it and you think that you remember it, but then you re-listen to your recording, and there's a lot more that you're like, oh wow, like I said that. So your subconscious is obviously, it's yourself, your higher self coming through you. So your consciousness isn't going to always remember everything. And it's actually really important to re-listen to your recording, especially if you have physical healing that you're getting done. Some people have found that the physical healing will happen. So like for me, okay, so with my, I don't know if you heard my story, but my healing was, I found it really painful to be touched. So when my kids jump at me, or when people try and massage my body, it used to hurt me. So then sometimes I've experienced that pain will come back, and I'll listen to the recording again, and I'll remember the healing, and I can readjust that healing, if that makes sense. So the recording's really important. So I'm really glad that you asked the question.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for coming along. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.